Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 14. A very interesting one today, and one that we should really take seriously, but we'll get into that in a minute or two. Today we have Stephanie Berkeley of the Farm Safety Foundation. If you want to say hello there, Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
So we've got Stephanie on today to talk about everything farm health and safety. We'll cover sort of all facets, and I'll leave it in Stephanie's hand to make sure we do so, because she'll know a lot more about it than me. But as always, before we get into the good stuff, just a little bit of admin. If you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, great. Comment down below in the comment section. It's always good to see you guys listening in. Let me know maybe people you'd like to see on the podcast, that sort of thing. And get in touch on Facebook and Instagram at Rural2Kitchen to tell me any other things you think I'm doing terrible. Like I say, and so all the time. So I just said it there, so I apologise about that. But yeah, enough of me sort of rabbling on there, Stephanie. Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Oh, crikey, that's the one thing I don't like talking about. Well, basically, if the mention of health and safety hasn't switched off your viewers or your listeners by now, thank you for your tenacity. I'm from Donegal in Ireland. My mum's Scottish. I have been with the Farm Safety Foundation since it started in 2014, 2015. Basically, I am from Donegal, so most of my friends are farmers or fishermen. So they're equally dangerous professions. And I have personal experience of families losing members of the family. Also, one of my best friends lost two of her brothers in the one day going to work. And we were probably about 17 at the time. So you do know exactly how it affects a family and a community when they lose somebody as a result of just a workplace incident as such. So when I moved over to England, hadn't a clue what I wanted to do, but this job just appealed to me. Came from a marketing and charity background myself, and I was making science sexy when I was in Ireland. So I just thought, well, let's just make safety sexy and start to get people to rethink the way they think about taking risks. And funnily enough, that's the theme for this year's Farm Safety Week, is rethink risk. About approaching every single job as if your life depended on it. And, in farming, let's be honest, it's got the poorest safety record of any occupation in the UK. So your life does depend on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing I actually teach the students is treat everything as a risk assessment, not a massive, big written out risk assessment, just everything you're walking into, consider, how does this work? Just a quick thought, and it starts to become second nature eventually. But I mean, there are stories there from when you were younger. It's devastating when you've got, personal experiences and whatnot. It absolutely is, and it really puts into perspective for yourself. But a lot of the folk that don't, it's quite hard to sort of understand what those numbers mean. And I mean, when we're speaking about numbers, agriculture has been not great, shall we say. I mean, agriculture accounts for, is it just under 2% of the UK workforce? But if you're looking at sort of figures of deaths, it's an industrial about 20%.
That's exactly right. I mean, there's 67,000 people directly employed in agriculture in Scotland, so it's not a huge amount of people working for something that is so fundamental to the economy. We need farmers. We know they've been recognised as key workers. They put food on our plate every day. But, last year there were 2 farm fatalities, as they call them. The year before there were 7. And this year, when the figures have come out, it's likely that in Scotland there'll be 4. Now, 4 doesn't seem an awful lot, but we're not talking stats here. We're talking people. Yeah. That's 4 people who won't be at the dinner table, 4 people that won't be around for Christmas, and that's 4 families and communities and friends that are basically going to have to live with the consequences of either making a mistake or, as you said, not seeing the risk And let's be clear here. We do risk assessments every day. And as you said, they don't necessarily have to be on reams and reams of paper. You make yourself a cup of tea in the morning. You don't lift that straight up to your mouth because you know you're going to burn your mouth. That's a risk assessment. So we kind of need to think and rethink the way our attitudes to it. So it's not about rolling your eyes every time. This is about coming home safe at the end of the day. And, that's worth thinking about, and that's worth striving for, Yeah,
and I think, we've sort of jumped into fatalities there. And am I right in saying that last year it's done on a sort of April to April basis? So the last year for sort of April 19 to 20, the agricultural deaths was 20 or 22. But this year it's almost about 150% at February. I haven't seen figures since.
Yeah, I mean, we'll know the figures when the Health and Safety Executive publish them for us.
Yeah.
But, they're being finalised at the moment. But, they do this. They do have a bit, and I don't know whether or not COVID has anything to do with it. And I'm sure that's going to come up in our conversation. But what we do know is that this year there were 5 members of the public killed on British farms. That's 5 members of the public. Every single one of them was in contact with livestock. Now, we have people all over that have had near misses with livestock. If you see an 800 kilo heifer running for you, you get out of the way. People that are using the countryside don't understand sometimes, what it is. They see a beautiful field. They don't see that as a farm business. They don't see that as a farmer's livelihood. They see a really cute calf. They think that's a great picture for Instagram. It's not, there will be a newly calved cow somewhere with her maternal instinct that if you get anywhere near that calf, the one thing that cow is going to do is kill you, get you out of the way. And unfortunately, we've wonderful people like Willie Harper from Renfrewshire, who is very honest and open about sharing his personal experience of that. And he's a man who knew what he was doing. He was tired, but this is farmers, and this is what we need to be aware of, that there is so much going on in farmers' head at any given time, that tiredness comes into it, rushing comes into it, and then the potential for them to make mistakes or make bad decisions can change their life completely.
Yeah, and I mean, we're saying farmers, but then you're saying it's folk that aren't even in farming. And when I heard about that increase, and you're saying the exact figures aren't out and the research hasn't been done, but something that went through my head was with COVID, there was obviously a lot less harvest workers brought from the normal places they were. I don't know if they were coming from nearby and they weren't fully trained, or I don't know, would that be something to do with it? Or
that is actually, I am doing research at the minute with counterparts in America, Latvia, Slovenia, Finland and Lithuania about exactly that, the incidences of people having been injured or killed on farms. Also the lack of free movement of people, temporary workers and foreign-born workers, and whether or not there was guidance issued for those people. And actually, to be fair, DEFRA did publish some very good guidance. Actually, Public Health England published it, hosted on the AHDB website about that. We published a guide for temporary workers as well, when we knew that land army was being called for. 70,000 people were being needed to pick fruit and, everything. And the fact that farm safety training wasn't there, because when they're being brought in almost like as contract workers, they will go through specific training before they're actually out there. But there was an element of desperation. They couldn't deliver training safely because of the size of the places and the social distancing requirements and stuff. So there's a lot of research that will need to be done to see what lessons are learned and how they can work faster and be more agile. I mean, we were able to get some info out there for, young farmers who were leaving colleges that were being sent home, that weren't receiving their training that we would normally do. Also for parents of children that were going to have young children on the farms, because when schools closed, farming families were going to be, they're going to be struggling because the children weren't going to be able to be supervised. What do they need to be aware of? The practical things, not the high and mighty, this can't be done. More from opinion of what can be done. What does good look like? What should you be striving for? What should you have at the back of your mind? So those gentle reminders.
And it's quite an interesting thought, actually. Not let's stop this, because I mean, when you consider agriculture, you consider a conventional office position. There's no way that can't be quote unquote more dangerous. I don't think it's possible. Maybe you'll disagree with that, but I don't see how it's possible for when you've got machinery, animals that yes you can control to a point, but there's only so much you can control them. How we ever get to like sort of exactly the same level as working in an office alongside people, computers, dividers, that sort of thing. So, what would your advice to people be that are maybe going on to farms? I see you guys make advice guides for parents, young farmers, as you said, people coming on to farms, new to farms, that sort of thing. What would your specific advice be to folk listening that maybe are going to start work on a farm or anything like that?
I mean, the thing is, okay, just because you can change a light bulb doesn't mean you can rewire your house. Just because I think it's complacency. Don't think you know everything. If you think you need training, perfect example, if you're going to use an ATV or a quad bike as part and parcel of your job, learn about the vehicle. Yes, you might have your driving license. So you're going to hop into Lewis Hamilton's Formula One car just because you've got a driving license. You're not. You're going to wait until somebody guides you around it and shows you what everything does. So the same should be with a quad bike. Get to know the type of vehicle, get to know the terrain you're going to be traveling on, wear your flipping helmet for a start. Yeah. What's just fundamental things like that is wear the proper equipment because it's there for a reason, not to stop you having fun or to impede your ability to do your job. But the helmet will stop flies going into your eyes apart from anything. It will be the only protection that you would have if that quad bike rolls because they don't have a rollover bar. It's not the law here. Understand if the ground you're traveling on is hard, are your tires properly inflated, just those kind of things. Go on a course. It'll be maybe a day out of your life, but if you're going to use that every single day, make sure you know how to understand it. Same with livestock, learning more about the animals that you're working with and their peculiarities and, would be worthwhile doing because, understanding that issue about the newly calved cow, understanding that, cows can get spooked by anything like a dog barking or a butterfly, that they're pack creatures, all of that kind of stuff. If this is what you're going to be dealing with, like anybody else, a lawyer wouldn't turn up at court without the right information to hand, so use your head. Machines don't have, brains, so use yours. All of those things. I mean, there's a lot to learn. And as you said, farmers have so much in their mind and everything seems to be stacked against them because it's out of their control. They're at the mercy of the elements. They're at the mercy of trade agreements. The market for UK goods is changing. They don't understand the full implications of Brexit, and it seems to be changing quite a lot as well. They're now being told that there are potential payments for them if they want to leave the industry to get new blood in, all of those kind of things. It just seems to be an ever-changing thing. So stay close to NFU Scotland to learn what's happening and how it affects you, because they're your first port of call. They'll get that info from government. They'll go through it and they'll get it out to you in a way that you'll understand, because farmers don't have an awful lot of time to read lots of paperwork. It's not what they're at.
Let's be serious. Does anyone know exactly what's happening with Brexit? Maybe that's another discussion for another day. I actually think one point to reiterate there, Stephanie, from what you said, I think a lot of us, we've all been young at one point. Why do I have to wear a helmet? And you mentioned that it's the sort of taking away from the fun experience. But you mentioned a really good point there. Wearing a helmet makes, like, we live in Scotland, there's rain from time to time. Rain hitting your face on the quad is the most annoying thing on the planet. You don't get that anymore. You get the visor. And I think that's actually a good way. I know the main reason should obviously be for safety, and it is for safety, but maybe a way to make people think about it is thinking that way, which is something I hadn't actually considered. But
Also something that you did mention about, we're all young. It's not the young people that are getting killed. It's not. It's the older farmers. When you think about the guys that are actually, if we look at this year's statistics, there are only 2 under the age of 40 so far.
Right.
Only 2. And one of those was a member of the public. So only one young farmer under the age of 40, according to the health and safety executive, what the figures that I have at the moment, they may change. Sure. But, that it is older farmers. There were 4 of them over the age of 80. So it's not the younger farmers, because the younger farmers are learning at college. They're learning at the Young Farmers Club, because we're working with SAYFC to roll out our Farm Safe module that they can do at their clubs, and we've got 6 fantastic farm safety ambassadors up there, all over the country doing this training. Like, it's peer-to-peer. So it's not like anybody preaching at them. It's somebody, explaining to them, these are the human consequences of what could go wrong. This is why you need to look after yourself. It makes good sense to you from a business point of view. If you're going to do this for the next 40 years, it's not somebody that's done it and got away with taking those risks for the last 40 years. It's never going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Well, your luck runs out. So you've got to use your brain.
I mean, I guess the one thing there is, I don't know what percentage of agricultural workers are below 40 as well. But the fact that there was 4 over 80, how many people are working at 80?
No, but it's not legal in other professions. But then again, would you blame them? Because farming is a lifestyle. It's a vocation. It's not a job. And let's be honest, there's very few of us are doing it because it's going to make us loads of money. And this is the thing, and that's why, whilst you can't turn around and say you shouldn't be farming at 80, why not? If he's enjoying it, but it's knowing the limitations and knowing the job that they're doing and thinking about what could potentially go wrong. If you're in a crush, or if you're in a race with an animal and you're 80 years of age, you're not going to get out as quickly as a 59-year-old is. And that actually 59 is the average age of the UK farmer. It's an older population, but it is still probably those older farmers over the age of probably 60 are by and large the majority of those that end up suffering a fatal injury.
I wonder how you do that, because I mean, considering an 80-year-old, right? I'm not farming at the minute. I'm from a farm, but if I was 80, I'd be 56 years from now. I'll be 80. The technology that I have grown up with and whatnot will be different in 56 years. And I think the jump in the 56 years from now back is a huge jump, from going into mechanics to now going into sort of the 4th agricultural revolution. Is there training in place for older farmers there as well, or is it focusing at younger more?
Do you know what? I would love to get my hands on the older farmers.
That would be difficult.
We were set up as a charity to look after the next generation, and there's only 3 of us, and we cover the whole of the UK, and we've got our education programs, we've got our campaigns, we've got our research, all of the things that we do. And, to be fair, NFU Mutual, the insurance company, set us up and basically said, you're independent, we're setting you up, we will fund you, for the next couple of years. I mean, they're the ones who put their money where their mouth is. We care about things, here's some money, you do what you have to do and report back to us once a year. So they've already extended their funding for us from 5 years to then another 3, and then they're hopefully going to keep doing that. But we just don't have the resources, because if we start to then change our focus to an older farmer, then that next generation who are coming into the industry, who are going to drive those good behaviours, will miss out. So it's one of those things that what we're doing just seems to be growing and growing in terms of, like, first year I did this, and I developed the training course. It was like we did 1 college, then we did 11, then we did 18, and then we were up to 30. And this year we're up to like 40, and that's 40 land-based colleges right across the UK, right over from Caffrey, Northern Ireland, to SRUC, down to Dutchy and Cornwall and stuff. So the demand for what we're doing is there, because there's a real hunger, because we're fed up hearing that it's got the poorest safety record of any occupation. We're fed up hearing that it's 7 times more dangerous than quarrying or construction, and 18 times more dangerous than the industry average. You know, we need to do something about it, but there needs to be not training. I would prefer gentle reminders, hand holding, you know what I mean? It's sowing the seed to use upon, but it's actually making them think that it's their idea.
Yeah.
Because they knew what what the potential risks are. So it's up to them, because your health, your safety, your choice.
True, actually. I mean, we try and market agriculture as a good place to work. That's why I do this podcast. And if you've got parents looking at their kids are deciding what college to go to, and they're looking at agricultural college, and then they look up about agriculture and they see that, there's going to be something in their mind, you know. But rightly so. Rightly so.
Absolutely. But the encouraging thing is that the next generation are more aware. They are more prepared to say no to a job if they know it's unsafe. They know how to challenge a job. And actually, one of the things we teach them is the psychology of challenge. And it sounds really lofty, but it's actually just giving them 5 steps. Do this. If they don't respond, do this. Do this, do this, do this. You know, and basically at the end of the 5 steps, walk away. You've done the best you can do. If that person is still making you do a job and you know it's an unguarded PTO that's there, or a cracked PTO shaft, you know, and they're asking you to work, you have to say no to protect yourself, you know. And then we supplement that with the brilliant people that we have who've very generously shared their stories with us in the hope that somebody else isn't going to be in that position, you know. So we do have stories of real people with real experiences, you know, so that those kids will know that there's real dangers out there. You know, we're not just saying this, and we're not sending you scary videos. It's just somebody talking about their own personal experience. And I think that's more, because you end up imagining what goes on, and then you can see that and visualize it yourself.
Yeah, and I think that the sort of talking about it, and there is that stigma of, oh, a manager said so. It shouldn't matter. You know, it really shouldn't matter. And it's one thing I really do push to students. I don't care if they're telling you to do something dangerous. It's not happening. And if we could get that out, that everyone says that, and, you know, out these folk that are trying to say just go for it when they shouldn't be, then that's got to be a win in itself. I didn't realise you guys had 3 employees. When I looked up on the website, there's the 3 people coming up, but I just assumed that was 3 people of the, that's mental.
No, that's it. That's it. There's just myself and Sophie and Eleanor.
And has it just been you 3 guys since day one, or?
No, it was me for about 3 years on my own.
Oh, fair play to you. You've turned
it was me. So I was answering the phone, and I was making the tea and doing the campaigns. Honestly, I was like, write the theme tune, sing the theme tune. But it's been fun. But the thing is, I mean, like, yes, there's only 3 of us, but we can call on people like, you know, SAYRC, we can call on, you know, the NFU Scotland, you know, RSABI, all of the guys, you know, up there. And same, we've got the same relationships in Northern Ireland and in Wales and in England. So it's just, we've got a big network of people that, like, if I don't know the answer, I know somebody who does.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a really important thing as well, because it's got to be about partnership. It's got to be about working together, you know, and not just a box ticking exercise.
Yes.
I mean, you know, you've got to really want to change it, you know. I mean, we're talking about the fatal injuries, but there's also 14,000 people every year have serious illness that have to live with it, whether it's musculoskeletal, whether it's zoonosis, or whether or not it's, you know, respiratory issues as well, you know, that come from working on a farm. So that's an awful lot of people.
Absolutely. And feel free to throw SRUC into that relationship building side of things, by the way.
Listen, I do. I have great memories of a rotten day standing in the rain. I think we had 4 seasons in one day up at Dumfries and Galloway, up at SRUC. But it was great, because they were actually one of the first colleges to be to actually take the training, because when I started, I developed the training session and I phoned around, and I could have been selling PPI. I swear I was that popular, but it just took 2 or 3 land-based colleges to go, do you know, that seems like a good idea, and it's not going to cost us anything. No, it's not going to cost you anything. And when you say it's free, I thought everybody'd be jumping at it. No, they weren't. So, the first year we did 11, and then suddenly they all met at a Landex meeting and started talking about it. And then the phone started ringing. So that's why we went up to 18 the next year, suddenly jumped. And then as the word spread, and as I got more members of staff, obviously, we were able to do more.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, the college I'm contacting from is the Dumfries and Galloway on the Barney. The one that I was at, what was that, sorry?
I loved that college. That's the one I went to.
Oh, really? Brilliant. Well, that'll be good fun. And the one I went to as a student was in Ayr, the SRUC in Ayr.
I've done them as well.
Yeah. So, and if you guys are listening and you're thinking, what is this? What is the Farm Safety Foundation? One thing that you might have heard of before, and I'm going to show you because Stephanie was very proud of me for this. I have kept these wellies on my key. Where is it? Is that the right way up?
Yep.
Yeah, I've kept these on my key ring since I did that thing in Ayr 4 years ago, and it's the yellow wellies, which are sort of like the poster to the Farm Safety Foundation. And the reason that this is coming out today, which is Friday 23rd of July, is today marks the end of the Farm Safety Foundation's Farm Safety Week. So could you tell us a bit, Stephanie, about what the Farm Safety Week is about? It's not the first time you've done it, and what it entails.
Actually, this is the 9th year of Farm Safety Week. It was actually something that was set up by the insurance company, NFU Mutual, 9 years ago. But actually, because of that, it was just a 1 week where NFU Mutual just talked about a couple of top tips for farm safety. And after the second time that they did it, the board met and said, you know what, we need to be talking about this more than 1 week in the year. And that's how the foundation ended up being established, was out of the back of it. So of course they handed it back to us and said, look, you're looking after farm safety now, so you look after Farm Safety Week. So at that point I went, right, well, we need to make friends. We can't do this on our own. So we went to the Health and Safety Executive, we went to NFU Scotland, Health and Safety Executive of Northern Ireland, the NFU in England, and all the leading sort of stakeholders as such, and said, look, do you want to do this with us? If we give you the themes, join with us, share our messages, let's get everybody on Twitter involved as well, and Facebook. But actually it's now grown to 5 countries. So it's England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland. And so for 5 countries over 5 days, and basically we share one key message. And this year the theme will be Rethink Risk. So things we're talking about are, tiredness and fatigue. Does that affect that? And we work very closely with the University of Aberdeen. Amy Irwin and her team there at the School of Psychology and the NTS-AG about fatigue, and we're sharing some of their research, and we've done our own research. That basically 69% of farmers admit that tiredness will cause them to take a major risk. Right. So also what we've done is we're out there and we're asking people, well, of course farmers are tired. Can't tell us not to be tired, Yeah. So we're saying, you tell me how you, as a busy working farmer, combat tiredness and fatigue. What do you do? What works for you? So this is what we're going to try and do, is get them to share those messages. Other things we're going to cover are things like the amount of people from the general public using the countryside, not understanding its uses. So really what we're going to try and do is get that information out to general public to learn a little bit more about farmland, what it can be used for. And then from a farmer's point of view, maybe this is your best way of helping yourself and helping your animals to protect them against the general public as well. So there's lots of, and then also we're going to talk about people that roll their eyes saying it costs too much. You know, farming safely costs too much. It costs the earth. Actually, it doesn't cost the earth, but it could cost you your life. So we're going to talk about those things. How much does a new HEV helmet cost? How much does a new PTO guard cost? You know, how much does it cost to put up a sign? You know, are they available? All those kind of things. And it's really just giving people little hints and tips, like, you know, downloading what 3 words onto your phone. It's free. But if anything happens, you'll be able to get emergency services to you quicker. And also working with people like George Noble, and there's a lot of different new technologies being developed as well that aren't going to necessarily cost a fortune, but they're worth an investment. How do you turn around and tell somebody's family that they weren't worth a new £75 PTO guard? You know,
I don't think there's anything you're ever going to buy for farm safety that's going to cost more than your son or daughter or mum or dad's life. Like, you know, I don't think that's ever the case. I hope it's never the case. I mean, the one of sort of integrating farm safety with the public as well. There is 2 sides to that coin. You know, there's the farm safe, the public safety on the farm, but that also does come with an expectation that there's the respect from the public to the farm as well, which there quite often is. And I know that's sort of going away from your side of things, Stephanie, but it's a tricky one to balance. Yeah. I mean, like Emma Harper up in Scotland, you might have heard of her, is doing great things on like the importance of dogs on lead and stuff, and started the Take the Lead campaign, you know, that sort of thing. And I don't know how that education gets out. I mean, I work with, or not work, but, you know, volunteer for RET up here, and that sort of thing, and getting into schools, talking about everything about farming, and starting from the kids, and maybe the kids come home and tell mum and dad and stuff. You know, I don't know how that works though.
Yeah, I know, and that's why we make a massive focus, especially on Farm Safety Week, to sell those stories in to local press, because everybody reads, you know, the local press. You'll read your wee free newspaper that comes through the door. You read that from, and that's our way, using things like that, but also using the real stories of like somebody talking about the fact that, you know, I mean there's been some fantastic stories, and you see them on Twitter, of actual farmers talking about the fact that there was dogs in the field. They didn't lift up their the dog poo, and unfortunately 2 cows aborted. You know, that's tragic. That's somebody's livelihood, you know, but actually getting people to realize that there are consequences. Yes, you're out for a good day out. Nobody's going to deny you that. We've got our beautiful countryside, and, you know, why shouldn't people enjoy it? But do you know what? Be respectful, as you said, of it. Understand that this is somebody's livelihood. This is somebody's business. That cute calf is somebody's animal. You know, that big, large heifer that you think is massive because it's pregnant. Your dog pooing and that animal eats that will cause parasites, and they don't get that. They just don't understand that. And taking your family up and parking or camping in somebody's lovely field, you know, could possibly ruin their harvest that year. You know, all of those kind of things are things like that they just have to be aware of. There are those people that won't listen anyway, but there are all those people that will actually go, do you know what? I never thought about that. Yeah. And that's what we want people to do. We want people just to think about it.
Yeah. You mentioned working alongside Aberdeen University there, and you were talking sort of on the basis that the farmers are tired. You know, I'm from a beef and sheep farm. The main example there is lambing. You could say calving, only get 15 cows. So the lambing's the main one. You know, harvests, there's shearing, all that sort of stuff. There's loads of examples. Talking about a solution for that, I mean, the one that jumps to mind, I personally don't drink it, but the one that jumps to mind is caffeine. That seems to be the one that will get everyone through, which probably isn't the best idea. You're going from having this problem of being tired to being addicted to something that you probably shouldn't want to be. What is there anything that's coming out yet there? Or
we're getting them in at the minute. You know, there are people talking about, you know, enforcing breaks. There's people talking about, you know, mindfulness, which is amazing, you know. And it's actually you know, all that business of taking some time and, you know, savoring the moment and savoring the present. So that it's incredible to think of the different strategies that people are using. We're bringing them all together, and they will go out almost like these are your top tips. Right. You know, for doing it, because, you know, as you said, like the caffeine is one that there are good coping strategies and there are negative coping strategies for that. You know, so it'll be interesting to see, you know, what people are doing. But, you know, you can't tell a farmer not to be tired. You can't tell them to take breaks, because they'll be like, the job's to be done, you do it. You know, we don't have as many people on the farm as we used to. So, and that's really, really important, because we're there just to support farmers. We're not there to tell them what to do. They know what they're doing. We're just there to remind them of what could go wrong and the fact that they are important and people do care about them and we need them. So, you know, come home safe and don't fall asleep at the wheel and all of those kind of things. So we're using sort of comparison with like airline pilots and military personnel and stuff like that. So because people like that, we would be flying long haul flights and all of those kind of things. So getting sort of learnings from them. So that'll be really interesting, because Ilnica, who did the survey at the University of Aberdeen, I'll be getting her paper through in the next couple of weeks. It'll be really interesting just to, and obviously it'll be out by now, so you can go onto their website, yellowwellies.org, and read up about it. So.
No, that sounds interesting. And one other thing I just wanted to pick up on, obviously aware of it myself, but I'd like you to tell everyone about it. What 3 words? Could you just tell us a bit about what that is, Stephanie? Because a lot of folk don't know about it, and I only really knew about it in the last month or so.
Oh, wow. It's just the best thing that has ever happened to location services ever. Okay, so what 3 words? The developers of this app, it's free, and it's what number 3 words have divided the entire Earth into 3 by 3 meters squared. Now, those of you that have a mind or can Google quicker than I can tell you will realize then that there's 57 trillion different addresses. So basically every single one of those 3 by 3 meter grids has been given a unique what 3 word address. So for example, I could be pizza, computer, dog, right? So essentially, if I driving up the road and I see something has happened in a field and it's not looking right, and I hop out to see what's going on, and I find the farmer lying there in need of assistance, I can basically, what 3 words, my location, I've got my location there, I can then phone 999 or 112 for emergency services and say, hi, I've just come across the scene of a farming accident here. My what 3 words location is pizza, computer, dog. At that point, they can then put those into there, and 96% of the UK's emergency services are using this now, have signed up to it. So they can put that into their computer. They can pinpoint me within 3 by 3 meters. So I don't need to know I'm off the B497, you know, past McLaughlin's farm, up the back lane on the left, and take a right past the 3rd haystack. You don't need that. I give them this and they've got me within 3 by 3, which means that they can decide whether or not it's quicker to send the air ambulance or the land ambulance. And when you're talking about a farm injury, there's no such thing as a paper cut, as I said. Like, you know, if it's a farming accident, it's probably a big one, and it's potentially a life-changing one or a life-ending one. So time is of the essence. So if they can get that vehicle to that incident at 3 by 3 meters, then, you know, they have a chance of saving somebody's life. So this is why it's really important.
It's a brilliant app, and I actually didn't know the sort of the uptake was so high, which is brilliant. And so it's better than I even realised.
Yeah, and actually right across the world it's improving, but in the UK particularly, obviously, where it was developed, it's massively high. So it's great for ramblers. It's great for if you're a cyclist on the road, you know, because, you know, you might do a 68-meter loop or 68-kilometer loop on a Sunday morning. Something happens and, you know, you don't actually really know where you are because your Strava's not connected to anything, you know. So there are these different things, these different ways. If you're, you know, on holiday somewhere and you don't know where you are, you don't need to know or speak the language. You can phone 112, speak to somebody in your own native tongue because it's a European, you know, emergency number, and then give them the what 3 words reference, and they'll still get help.
No, it's brilliant. And I think, you know, with sat navs and stuff, we don't know what road we're on. We barely know if we're on the A1. You know, like it's we just, yeah, grand, that's ready, let's go. You know, and it's almost a skill that's lost, really, knowing what road you're on and stuff for that sort of thing. What 3 words has just made that not matter, which is so good.
Yeah. But I think when you're talking about rural locations, especially in Scotland, because it's such a huge landmass there that is being used and being farmed and being crofted and all that sort of stuff, you know, it's huge for that, especially in terms of those locations, because people don't even really use the grid lines anymore.
No.
You know, if you're going up and if you're contracting on somebody's farm, you know, are you going to know exactly, will they give you the grid lines, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
But when you're there, check up the what 3 words. So it's there, saved in your phone, and you know it. Plus,
as you said, something like pizza or dog or something, these words are a bit easier to remember when you're on it than 5 point, you know.
Exactly. There are words like that they do use, which is amazing.
Yeah. And we've spoke a fair chunk there about you know, fatalities and injuries and stuff. One thing we've sort of mitigated, or not mitigated, we've missed out is mental health. And you mentioned there, your example there was coming on a field and there was a farmer in it. And how often are we farming on our own? You know, whether it's out drilling or you're out gathering on a hill, and you know, people couldn't hear you shout if you needed to. You know, so mental health hits agriculture quite severely from lone working, from you know, all the pressures that are involved, as you said. What's the sort of mental health story in farming at the minute? What's, you know?
Do you know what? It's encouraging because more people are talking about it. You know, when we started talking about it 4 years ago now with the Mind Your Head campaign, it wasn't something people were really talking about it. However, in saying that, the Scottish Association of Young Farmers had their Are You OK campaign, which was groundbreaking. They were first off the mark to talk about the issue of mental well-being. And it's not, people talk they say mental health. Everybody has mental health. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but it's just the same as physical health. Sometimes you're in great form, sometimes you get a cold. Sometimes you hurt your leg, 5-a-side football, but you know, but the thing is, if you hurt or broke your leg in 5-a-side football, everybody would be talking about it. You'd be dining out for months on the sympathy. People will be finding out to see when you're back. But you know what? If you have a bout of poor mental health or mental ill health, you don't talk about it. So you don't share that. No. Keep it away from people because you feel people might judge you or think badly about you. But actually, if one thing that the actual pandemic has taught us is that, you know, we know that, you know, before the pandemic, 1 in 10 people in the UK were likely to be suffering from depression. But actually, that was back in sort of maybe March. Fast forward to August, it's 1 in 5. Not 1 in 10, 1 in 5. And actually, the Centre for Mental Health said that as a result of the pandemic, it is likely that 10 million people in the UK will be needing help with their mental health. You know, so when you think about everybody out there that's got what they're dealing with, but on top of that, you've got an industry that is at the mercy of the elements, that is subject to significant debt in order to do what they're doing. They've got the worry of international trade agreements. They've got the worry of, you know, political developments. They're on their own, as you said, all day with nobody else to talk to. You know, they're looking after their land, they're looking after their livestock, and they don't look after themselves. And this is, you know, it's one of those things that it's got to be talked about. We're so lucky, and actually, specifically in Scotland with RSABI, that fantastic organisation. I can't even talk highly enough about them, because no matter what the issue or the stress that you're experiencing is as a result of, whether it is financial, they can help. Whether it is marital, if it's family disagreements, if succession planning, which is the thing that nobody likes to talk about, handing the farm over, or even having that discussion around that, they can help with all of that. You know, they're there to offer an ear, to offer support, to offer counselling, to get people to the, you know, the support that they need. You know, so you're very, very lucky to have that. And it's a like one-stop shop. But unfortunately for them, you know, the funding's all is, you know, the need for their services has increased. The funding needs to increase, you know, likewise to match that, because they're doing an awful lot with just the same amount of money.
Yeah, and you know, I was always aware of RSABI, and I'm a 20 stone person, and there was the RSABI push-up challenge, and I did it, and I posted every day for 25 days, much to everyone's joy, and only on the second last day did I manage 25 without falling over. And after that, I started to look up RSABI, and David Leggett, who's their chairman, you probably know, he was the second person on this podcast, so it was a really interesting chat to see what they're doing. And when you talk about that we weren't talking about it, it seems like a bit oxymoron, but I always remember I'd maybe be 10 or 12 or something, and I went to the local market, and a gentleman called Chris Blackshaw was speaking to my dad, and Chris is a reverend or minister, I'm not exactly sure the exact thing, but he was just having a chat with my dad about how he was, you know, didn't know him, never met him before. I remember getting in the car and dad saying, like, that was funny, you know, what was that about? And as time went on, that conversation is now, that was so nice. You know, it's not, that was strange. It's now, that was the first time I was really aware of that. And that he'd be 50 at the time, and he'd never really considered that happening. And it's quite good that now it's just normal to chat about it.
Yeah, that's it. And that's why, you know, you need to encourage people to sort of reach out and to speak to that person you haven't spoken to for a wee while, and actually look out for each other and look after each other, because that's what, you know, that's what the agricultural industry is so good at. Because if anything went wrong on the farm, all the neighbours would be around to help, you know. But it's also the same, you know, let's just realise that this has been a really weird year, really weird, and that's, you know, to say the very least. And I think we're all struggling. It's been a bit of a roller coaster for everybody, you know, to a larger or lesser extent. But I think we need to continually connect, because we've actually been disconnected as a society. But we need to find ways of staying connected with each other so that we don't disappear into our own heads and overthink things. And that's, unfortunately, if you're not in the right headspace when you get behind the wheel of an ATV, it's not the ATV that's dangerous, it's you.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the thing, you know, farmers will do that if you're wanting to fix a hedge or they're wanting to fix the roof of a barn or something. They'll go, don't you be doing that, it's too dangerous, let me do it. You know, they will put everybody else's safety, everybody else's, you know, well-being way ahead of themselves. But they don't realise that if something happens to them and they are the main farmer, then there's still a farm that needs looked after. There's animals that need tended to, you know. So they need to think of themselves as, you know, you are your farm's biggest asset, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting point you raise about it's not the quad that's dangerous, it's you. There's obviously examples, I mean, great initiatives out there like Tilly Trailer Service. I'm sure you're very aware of. Fantastic. I've totally forgotten her name, begins with a J.
Jane Gurney.
Yeah. What she's doing there, I mean, a horrible situation that had to happen for that initiative to start, obviously, and you know, whatever you say about these situations, but not nice at all. But what she's done with that and the move she's made is fantastic to hopefully never have something happen like happened to Harry, you know. And I think that these things that are happening, just people getting involved themselves, is brilliant to see what this as an industry can do. But yeah, I'm conscious, Stephanie, that you're a very busy woman. We've spoken for, God, almost an hour, 50 minutes, I think.
I'm Irish. It's the curse of the Irish that I'm not going to say Blarney Stone, but we like, somebody wants to listen, I'll talk.
when you've got a Scottish person and an Irish person sitting chatting, it's going to go for a while. I think that's well known. The only missing thing here is a whiskey, I think. But yeah, it's been really good to talk, and hopefully folk will listen in and think, I will just think twice about whatever, even one thing. That's all it takes to hopefully save a life. And what we always finish on, and this is slightly different because this is more been aimed at health and safety and stuff. And no, the questions are going to be still the same. I always ask everyone at the end, Stephanie, one, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And two, if you had any tips for someone coming into the industry you work in, which with yourself is sort of health and safety itself, what would they be? But maybe you want to talk about agriculture and doing that in a safe manner, maybe.
Yeah, I think where I see myself in 5 years' time, I see myself being back in Moville, looking over at to see if I can see the Ailsa Craig on a good day, which I can, by the way, just letting you know. But I don't know. I actually, do you know what I would really like? I would like for there to be no need for the charity. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to be unemployed in 5 years, so that because there would be no deaths, there wouldn't be any injuries. The aim is to have zero avoidable deaths. It's what we want, and it shouldn't be an ambitious one. It should be one that we're all working towards. But advice: if you're going to do a job, learn about it. Yeah. Just be a sponge and just do the courses. Learn to understand, how the machines work, how they work and how they work safely. And just every single job, think about what can I do to make sure I come home tonight to my family and to those that love me. Because looking after themselves is really, it's not, as I said, it's not a lofty thing. And yes, everything that I talk about is common sense, but common sense isn't that common these days. So, but that's it really. It's just rethink the risk.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You've chosen that motto for a reason, and maybe even to add to that, make sure you make it home at night at the end of the night. Make sure your family does. Make sure your friends do. Have the conversations that makes everyone think as well. But yeah, it's been really good to talking about quite a delicate topic today, which is just trying to think of what the two are before this. It's the first time we've done that on the R2Kast, and it's something that we need to do. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope if you're working on farms or you're going out a walk. I was going to say walk with a cat there. I don't know why that was going to be a walk with a dog.
People walk with cats. People walk with hamsters. We don't judge.
Exactly. I'm a cat person as well, very much more than dogs. So if you're going to walk with your cat, your rabbit, your dog, whatever, just be mindful of the places you're walking through. And yeah, just treat everything as something that could do you some damage, could kill you, and hopefully it won't. But yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for coming on. I appreciate it muchly.
Thanks, Ian.
No, not at all. It's been very good to chat. And to you guys listening, thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks.